Okay, so in the last video, I ended that by giving you a taste here of CSS. So what I did is I changed the default black color of this paragraph into this blue color. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea of what we'll be doing. You know, we'll be changing the color of our stuff. We'll be adjusting the size. I'll pretty much show you how you can actually organize your website as you like. Because all we did in the HTML section is we just went through how to add these elements, and now we'll go through how to structure them. Okay, so CSS can be added or implemented with your HTML in 3 different ways. The way that I went through in the last video was inline CSS, which means that you take this style command and you put it in your HTML tags, and then you have it be equal to the different changes you want to effect to that element, right? So in this case, I added it to the P tag, which means it's going to affect that paragraph. And then I'm saying that the style should be equals to whatever style I put in here. So in this case, I changed the color to blue, but I can add additional commands. So I can come here and I can add something else. So let's try changing the alignment. So text align center. Okay, so let's try saving that and see what happens. Oh, missed the semicolon. Let me put this in. Good. Refresh. Good. So I've added an additional command to take my text and put it in the center of the web page. Okay. So so this is what we call inline CSS. When you add it to a tag like this, and there are 2 other ways, as I mentioned. So another way of doing it is internal CSS. So in that case, you put the CSS instead into your head section. So let me do that for you now. So if I take this out of here and I save it and I refresh my web page, it goes back to normal. Okay, so I'm going to instead do it as an internal CSS command now. So I'm going to come here in my head section. So remember that your head section is marked out by your anything between your opening head tag and your closing head tag here. That's your head section. So I'm going to put this below this char set line here. So I just put my cursor here at the end of it and I just press enter twice. So now I'm going to put in some additional commands here. So I'm going to put style /style. Good. So what this is doing is that this is marking out an area for your CSS commands. Okay, so we're using opening and closing tags again, whereas with inline CSS we didn't use tags, right? We just inserted the commands into existing HTML tags. Okay, so in this case we're actually using style tags to tell the website where our style commands, where our CSS commands are. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing that I did just now. I'm going to make changes to the paragraph. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put P, and this tells the website that I'm trying to make style changes to the paragraphs within it. Okay, so P, and then I'm going to open some brackets here. And commands you do in CSS always have to be between these 2 brackets. So what you do, so how it works is that you identify the element you want to change, in this case the paragraph, and you have to put your commands within a bracket. Okay, like I have here. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to say that I want the color to be blue, and I want the text alignment to be in the center. Good. And how we do CSS commands is that generally what we do is that we specify an attribute we want to change. So attributes could be the size of something, the color, the alignment of it, etc. So attributes are pretty much the different characteristics that these elements are going to have. And so we identify our attribute, and then we put a semicolon, and then we specify the change we want to make to that attribute. So I'm specifying the color attribute here. Then we have our semicolon, and then I'm saying that I want that attribute to be changed to blue For text alignment, I'm specifying the alignment here. I want to change the alignment. I have my semicolon, and then I'm saying I want my text alignment to be central. Okay, and finally you end these commands by putting a colon. Sorry. Good. So this is internal CSS as opposed to inline CSS, which I did previously. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to see what happens now. So let me try saving it. Refresh. And good. So the same thing happens. Okay. So those are two different ways of implementing CSS that we've covered so far. And there's one final way. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out. And this way is external CSS, and this involves creating a separate document entirely for your HTML document and linking the two with a command. Okay, so let me show you what I mean. So what I'm going to do is that in this head section, instead of having the internal CSS here, I'm going to put a link to another file that I'm going to create. So I'm going to put link rel is equals to style sheet. And the type is equals to text /CSS. And finally, the href is equals to, and I'm going to call this new file style.css. Good. Okay. So this command is used to link a HTML file to an external CSS file. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save this, and I'm going to create this separate file. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize these windows. I'm going to come back to our folder that we have our files in. So remember, you could just come to your desktop. If it isn't open, you just double click it to open it and you'll have it up here. So we have our HTML file or our website, and then we have folders for our images and our videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another folder now for our CSS files. So again, you just have to right click in a blank area, come down to new and click folder to create a new folder. And I'm going to call this folder CSS, okay? And then I can press enter. Good. Okay, so we have a folder for our CSS. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a document. So I'm going to come back to Notepad++. Good. So we've been working so far in this tab on our HTML file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up another tab now for our CSS file, okay? So to do that, I'm going to come back to this new tab button here. I'm just going to click on it. And good. So it's going to create a new tab, but it's going to retain the tab we had for our HTML file here, okay? And I'm going to put in the same information, the same CSS information into this new tab. So I'm going to put P, because we're changing the paragraph, keep same brackets. And I'm going to put, I want the color to be blue, and I want the text alignment to be central. Good. Okay. Alright, so let's try saving this. So to save this, remember, we're not going to click the save button. We could though, but it's good practice to just go to File, click Save As when you're creating a new file. And remember that we have to specify 3 different things. We have to specify where the file is going. You have to specify the file name. You have to specify the Save As type, okay? So I'm going to specify that this file has to go in the CSS folder within our HTML folder. Good. And I'm going to come here to the file name and I'm going to call it style, and this has to be the same file name that we put in the command that we would have put in the head section. I'll show you that in a minute. So style.css, and I'm going to put the save as type to be a cascading style sheet here. Yeah, cascade style sheets file. Yes. Okay. So good. So we have, so just make sure you have your information correct. You have to be saving it to your CSS folder here. You have to have the right file name. So it's style, and make sure that it has a .css at the end. So style.css, good. And make sure that you're saving it as a cascading style sheets file here as the save as type. So now I'm going to save it. Good. Okay. So that's it. One thing, I made a mistake. So let me come back to my HTML file to show you what I mean. So this href section here, this href link here, what this does is that this specifies where the file is and the name of the file, okay? So I didn't specify that I put this in my CSS folder, so I'm going to put css/style.css, and that should do it now, okay? So I'm going to try this. I'm going to save both files, and I'm going to make sure that it's working fine. So now I'm going to bring up Chrome, and let's see if it's still working. Refresh, and it's still working, so that means that everything is working fine. So that's it. So what we've done here is that we've gone through the 3 different types of CSS file. So again, you have your inline CSS, where you go to a particular tab and you put the style commands within the tab, or tag, sorry, not tab, tag, sorry. You have internal CSS, where you have your CSS in the head section. And then finally you have external CSS, where you have a separate CSS file, and you just put a link to that file within your head section. Okay.